If you having girl problems, I feel bad for you, son. I got 99 problems, but a bitch ain't one. I got the rap patrol on the cat patrol.
What is up, my fellow Kryptonians? It's your boy Superfan K here, and on today's episode of the Superfan Show, I will be reviewing Neighbors 2 Sorority Rising. It is the sequel to the surprise smash hit Neighbors that came out in 2014. No one expected that movie to do good. No one expected to like it. Surprise, both happened. It made a shit ton of money, and as a result, we get a sequel this weekend. Comes out on Friday. Neighbors 2 stars Zac Efron, Seth Rogen, Rose Byrne, Chloe Grace Moretz, and it takes place a few years after the first one. Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne, they play this married couple named Mac and Kelly. They are happily married. They have a kid. They have another kid on the way. But the big thing for them in this movie is they're trying to sell their house. They're trying to sell their house. They're trying to move out of the neighborhood. And everything would be good with that, except they have to go through an escrow process, which basically means that they're under 30 days probation. The new couple that they just sold the house to can't be spooked out or freaked out by anything that happens around the house during that 30-day period. They have to pass their inspections. If they do all of that, the house gets sold. Meanwhile, Chloe Grace Moretz just got to college. She doesn't have any friends. And she joins a sorority, and she finds out that sororities aren't allowed to party. They aren't allowed to throw their own parties. They're not allowed to do anything resembling that. They're just allowed to go to frat parties. So Chloe Grace Moretz hooks up with a couple of other chicks, and she's like, hey, why don't we form our own sorority? They do. It's called Kappa Nu. And they try to move into the house right next door to Kelly and Mac. As you can imagine, this creates some friction. This creates some problem. And therefore, we have our movie. Let's get into the Supers and the Luthors of Neighbors 2 Sorority Rising. The Supers. Number one, this is a very funny movie, all right? I feel like I should say that off the bat. For anybody worrying that it's one of those comedy sequels that's just not funny, not true. This movie's very funny. It has some very funny moments throughout. The jokes, for the most part, are well executed, and there's a lot of well-written humor and dialogue in this movie that you don't usually see in comedy sequels. I mean, that's just kind of a fact. Comedy sequels don't really have a proven track record of being good. This one, good job. Solid. The humor is very well written. The characters, the funny characters, Seth Rogen, Rose Byrne, Zac Efron, who is back in this movie as Teddy. He kind of is in the middle of this ongoing war between the sorority and between Kelly and Mac. And all the characters, they play off of each other well. They all fit together well. They all have their moments to shine in terms of funny. And the movie is relentlessly paced. It's fast. And again, the jokes, they just keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. Most of them hit. Some of them miss. But overall, you're going to be entertained and you're going to laugh. I was laughing my ass off on certain scenes in this movie, and I was kind of worried that I wouldn't, that I was just going to be sitting there with resting bitch face for most of the movie because it wasn't funny, because it's a comedy sequel. But this is one of the comedy sequels that takes the premise of the original movie, does it exactly the same way again, more on that in a minute, and it just has a lot of really well-realized humor that it's funny. It's really, really funny. What do you want me to say? The Luthors. Okay, the problem is that, again, they take the exact same premise as the first movie, and they do it the exact same way. It's pretty much the first movie except with chicks in it, and Zac Efron's character, his character arc is the exact same as it was in the first movie. There's nothing different, nothing original. It's just kind of a rehash, a retread, and gets kind of repetitive and makes the movie feel a little bit stale for me. Also, the jokes in the second half of the movie don't hit as well. They don't land as well as they do in the first half of the movie. I feel like the jokes kind of fell off a little bit. And the jokes had kind of sloppy editing in terms of the transition from a joke to another joke. There were these long pauses where something that wasn't that funny, you could tell the writers thought it would be funny, and so they tried to leave that pause in there for the audience to laugh, but it came off as awkward, and then they tried to shoehorn or shove another joke right in there that was equally not as funny. And so some of the scene-by-scene humor editing was kind of, not that good. Also, this movie suffers from a problem of not having as much heart or as much emotional depth or a core, any kind of emotional core that the first one had. The first one at least had a few moments where we could slow down, take our breath, and enjoy these characters. And in this one, it's kind of just a relentless shenanigans, hilarity kind of thing. It's just kind of relentless comedy in your face for an hour and a half. Entertaining as hell, but just not as much heart and not as funny as the first one. Having said that, it's not a bad comedy sequel. So again, it gets bonus points just for that. And my overall rating for this movie, I would give it a Man of Steel rating. It's not a great comedy. It's not as good as the first one, but it's solid. It's very good. It's funny. It's entertaining. You'll have a lot of fun watching it. Seth Rogen, he makes these movies. You love Seth Rogen, and he's good in the movie. He's funny in the movie. Everybody pretty much plays their role, and everybody's funny, including Chloe Grace Moretz. She has some surprisingly funny bits in the movie that I will not spoil here, but she kind of surprised me with how funny she was in some of her scenes, and I liked her character overall. So guys, that is my review for Neighbors 2 Sorority Rising. Comment, like, share, let me know what you think. What is your favorite comedy sequel? Do you have a favorite comedy sequel? What's your favorite comedy original movie that created an unnecessary sequel, which some people could argue this movie is unnecessary? Let me know. If you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel.